Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Qdabra's weekly webinar. My name is Patrick, and I am your demo monkey today. Today we're talking about SMS text and how to integrate authentication using these new phone-based systems so that your external users who do not have access to your site, or maybe they're just not logged in, can fill out forms. And so this week's demo, first of all, let's do a quick audio check. Can you all hear me okay? Raise your hand if you can. And it looks like we've got Chris here. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Eric. Not Derek, Eric. And Michael, great to have everyone here. Great to see these familiar faces. So this week's demo is really focused on creating forms that your external users can use. And when they're external, they don't have a login, right? So that's good because you can save on licensing, but it means that we need to verify them somehow. So nowadays we've got our cell phones, so we can actually send them a text message and they can type it in, and we know that they've got their phone with them because we have a timeout, 120-second timeout to allow them to type that in. And this is really cool because it allows you to interact with these people without having to pay necessarily a SharePoint license. Don't tell Microsoft I said that. But actually, they're double counting their licenses anyway, right? Because they get multiple people, multiple logins on 365, and they really ought to have. And there's a way to do it with just one, but nobody does that. The other reason why it's cool is because your mobile users can fill it out. I mean, these are people that are part of your organization. They might be on the go. They might not want to log in. And finally, obviously, you've got this immediacy. So instead of going through an asynchronous flow or workflow to fire off, because you can do this in 365. They have SMS integration. You can actually send a flow. You can have a flow that sends a text message to somebody, but there's a little bit of a lag because you have to submit the form and then you got to wait for that to fire. The workflow is the same way. There's a little bit of a lag, and this is immediate. So it's immediate. The form is doing it from the form directly to Twilio, which is our integration partner here. Twilio is an API-based SMS text messaging service on the web, very popular today. Lots of businesses are using them. They're very, very cheap. It's 1 cent per send. And this also shows how to integrate with JSON. So those are the reasons why we're doing the webinar today. Any questions on that? We have a quick poll for you, and I don't want to forget the poll. We get two quick polls, actually. We've got the first poll, obviously, is why are you interested in this webinar? So let's get a quick idea of why you're here. And we'll give this a few seconds, and then we're going to switch back to the presentation here. So we've got, let's see, most of you are saying the first two, there's a dead heat here between external parties, internal users, and fan club. Now fan club is down, internal users is up. Okay, thanks for saying that. So basically it's 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3, and there's, I think, two people who said general integration with SMS messaging. So thanks for that poll. We got one more short poll here, and we're going to switch to that and get your input here on this. And this is really kind of how often are you using your cell phone today to type in codes, right? And we all use our cell phone, and all these apps and all these products now are trying to use it for authentication, which is really interesting as an authentication model because now, I mean, it is a bit of a hassle to have to type in 4 digits, but it's not too bad. And it is a nice alternative sometimes to having them type in their email. Okay, so it looks like 45% of you are saying a few times a week, and 18% said never, and 27% of you said more than once a day. And a couple of people said they were too embarrassed to admit it. We got to have a little bit of humor. Okay, so let's move on. So we are going to do a demo. And before we do the demo, I just want to give you some context. We have been doing the same Contact Us form demo for the last 2 webinars. This is the 3rd webinar in which Contact Us is featured. And we are going to give you a complete package to install this on your site. You don't need help. We've actually got a document that walks you through it. It's a lab. One of our lab gurus, goddesses, Joanne Alfaro, put the lab together. It's very well written. And she's going to walk you through how to install it. But the Contact Us form is kind of nice because it's generic. Everyone needs a Contact Us form. and it integrates with your SharePoint calendar. We've shown this before. We've done this demo. We've shown you how to track attendance if you were in the webinar on the 24th, the week before that, the 18th, or the previous one on the 4th. You got to see it, and those webinars are available on YouTube. But today we're actually looking at external public forms and authenticating you. Now, I sent you a link in email to use on your cell phone, and I also sent you a link in the chat. So you can try this at home. You can try this at work, wherever you are. And I encourage you to do that. So the Contact Us form is very common. We showed these black areas before. Basically, the reason why this form is cool, well, actually, the requirements for this form. And these new requirements are in blue here. Obviously, we want the form to be easy to fill out. We want to sort of set and get expectation. We want to, and the new stuff is we want to verify who they are using that two-factor authentication. Okay, so let's get on with it. We're going to go do the demo now, and I'm going to switch. We're going to be doing two kind of demos. I'm going to first just walk you through it and open up the form and fill it out, and then Jimmy is going to show you how we implement it in the form. No code involved. So you should all see this. This is, obviously we probably want to show people more than one field here, but we changed the form briefly to, now if you're already in the system once, it's going to get your system information. It's going to text you automatically. I just got the code here, so I'm going to type in the code I got on my cell phone. And if you are not in the system, what will happen is you'll fill out the form, and you'll get a text message when you give it your phone number. Okay, so I want support, and I want to talk to Hillary because I've got a form that has Q-rules in it, and I need some help. So I'm going to set up an appointment, and this is loading a calendar with available times, and I'm going to pick, let's see, I'm going to pick next week, 9 a.m. on Wednesday, and I want to talk to Hillary. And I'm going to submit the form. So this is everything we showed last week. The one thing that we didn't show is this SMS text integration. Now, this is when you have an account already there. I'm going to delete my account and try it again and show you what it looks like if you don't have an account, because that's interesting as well. So we've got some emails now. In fact, the system sent us an email saying thank you for your contact, and so on. It should have said my name there, but and in a minute it should let me know if Hillary has accepted it or not. But let's do it again. Let's actually show you what we're doing. On the site, we have a new contacts list. Let's see if I can find it here. And this list is showing everyone who's signed up. So the form submits to this list. It looks like we've got a couple people that filled it out. Thank you, Shane. Thank you, Malars, and Chris, all three of you. But you can see here that my information is there. So if I delete this, we should be able to do this again, and it'll look slightly differently. So there's really kind of two modes here. We've got a mode where we're actually filling out the form for the first time, and we've got a mode where we're I want to go back to the form. I could probably do this from here. Okay, so I'm going to fill this out anonymously again. And it should not find me this time, so let's try this. And now it's going to ask me some more questions. It's going to say, what's your first name, your last name? And you all should have seen this. And this is a form that automatically changes itself based on your screen width. So it is kind of mobile sensitive. And I got to add my phone number. Jimmy, if that's the wrong format, I guess we'll find out. So it's going to text me again now, and I got the text message. And if I didn't put that in correctly, you'd see an error message, and it would say, or if I waited more than 120 seconds, it would give me an error message. So I should have probably demoed that as well. I should have probably put in the wrong thing. But same basic functionality here. We'll pick myself for Friday next week, and this should send an email both to me and myself because I'm playing the role of the customer and the representative. So let's see if the email comes through or not. nice. Okay, there's the email. Just finally, and maybe it's a different email. Maybe it's taking a minute or two for this one to come through. And this is the issue with Flow, is that sometimes it's not super fast. The text message has to be really super fast. So Jimmy's going to walk you through these steps. I'm going to have him share out his screen and walk you through how this happened. But before that, let's just once again go through the steps here. We're getting the user's phone number via the form. We're actually then sending a verification code to their text using the Twilio integration. He's going to show you that in a second. The expiration, there's an expiration of 120 seconds. So if they don't respond in 120 seconds, we cause an error, and that's basically to prevent spam bots. But also, yeah, it's mainly to prevent some bot from trying to fill us with a whole bunch of numbers, right? So it's going to error out after a certain amount of time. And that maybe you want that to be 60 seconds, I don't know. But you can change that. We send the verification code to the user, and then they enter it, and then we validate them using rules. So Jimmy, I'm going to switch to you. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to throw those into the question well, and we will be answering those. And okay, Jimmy, you are now the presenter. Do you have audio?
Yes, I believe I do.
Oops, did I pick the right person? I think I might have picked me by mistake. Sorry about that. Okay, now do you see it?
Yep. Okay. Okay, so just a walk through some of the main functionality of this form and how that verification stuff works. So the first thing on Patrick's list was to get the phone number from the user. So there are basically two routes that can take, depending on whether they've used the form before or not. If they have used it, we use their email address to look up their record in a list, in a contacts list, like this. And if they are an existing user, we copy their information in from the list. We trigger the send verification action, and then we move on to the verification stage. If they are not an existing user, we set the state to registration, and then they go fill this out. When they click this button, it sort of does some crunching on the phone number to make sure it's valid, and then it triggers that send verification. Again, same as in the other case. So so basically, it's pretty simple. All we've got is a phone number field that contains their phone number. The other two values that are needed to send a text message is the from phone number, which is known ahead of time. It's associated with the Twilio account, and the message itself. So let's look at what this send verification action looks like. And in this form, I have that in the form logic. It's right here. So first, it just initializes some values. It sets the number of attempts to 0, and resets the exceeded max attempts flag back to false if it wasn't false. It determines it generates a verification code. In this case, we're using a pretty simple way to generate it. We're basically taking the time as a number with all the punctuation removed, multiplying it by itself, well, the time times the time plus 2, just to get some randomization in there, and then just taking the last 4 digits of that result, and that provides a pretty nice random value that we can use as a code. And then we set the timeout to the current time plus 120 seconds. Then we build up the message. We've got the account ID, the from value, the to value, and then the message itself, which is just your verification code is, and then the code. And then we send the message by triggering another field.
Jimmy, quick question here on the set message values. Can you show them where they're going to want to put in their Twilio account?
Yeah, we've actually put a place for that here in Qdabra rules. and this is mentioned in the documentation, but there's a rule here that says set, make this a little smaller, set config values where you specify the site URL, the Twilio account ID, and and the phone number. So
for those of you that don't have, for those of you that don't have Twilio, just quick shout out to Twilio. It's kind of like a pull, like if you have a car and you're hitting a toll booth, you basically put money on your card, right, like $20 or something, and then you run out of that, and you can automatically have it pull more money, or you can have it stop. So Twilio allows you to, sort of prepay for, 20,000 or 2,000 SMS texts. You put $20 in, you get 2,000 texts, right? So it's pretty cheap, and you can control it. So it's not something that will get out of control. You can set it not to automatically pull again, and that would just fail. Sorry, Jimmy, keep going.
Yeah, and you will need a Twilio account in order to try out the form if you do want to try it out, if you want to install it on your own site. But yeah, like Patrick said, and you can start off with a trial account, which just try testing, sending it to yourself and making sure it works, which trial account is free. Okay, so then once we've built up the message values, we trigger this trigger send SMS, and that's over here in the Twilio data connection, where I've set up some sort of generic fields for Twilio, sending messages by Twilio, and that trigger send SMS field is right here. Before we look at that, there's just a little detail here on the from, to, and message. The way the Twilio API works is that you send a web request to it, and that request has to be escaped in a certain way. So what we're doing is anytime one of these from, to, or message values changes, we're using the qrules encode command to encode it as a URI component, and then we're putting that result in these attributes here. So the from goes in the from escaped, and the to goes in the to escaped, and so on. And then we cobble those together when we actually send the request to Twilio. So down here we can see, first we're building up that body, exactly like I said, with the from value is from escaped, the to value is to escaped, and the body is the message escaped. We're sending the message by using a make request command. It's basically a standard URL format plus the account ID / messages.json, and the content of that request is that request body that I built in the previous rule. And you don't really have to know how to do this in order to try out this form because it's already set up for you. But definitely, if you want to use Twilio in any other form, this is good stuff to know. And you can pretty much just copy over the logic, put this Twilio XML in your form, and then copy over whatever logic is here in this one. And then so we make a request to Twilio, that's what actually triggers the text message to send. Twilio sends back to the form a response which is in a JSON format. So we decode that by assigning that response to this temporary field here, response content, and then using the JSON to XML command to convert that to JSON to store it in the XML data source. So just so you can sort of see what that looks like. This form has a debug view. So I will trigger an email to a text message to myself.
Can you show them what it looks like when you get it wrong to me? Just for a second. I mean, just the error messages.
Sure. Yeah. So if we're doing a couple of checks here, and I can show you the rules for this. But first, if it's blank, it says please enter a code. My code is 6848, so I'll enter something other than that. The code you entered is incorrect. And if I keep entering those in, eventually it's going to say, it looks like it gives me 4 tries, and then, or maybe, Okay, so here you have exceeded the maximum number of validation attempts. Please generate another code and try again. So eventually it stops me from entering codes and I have to generate a new one. So I can't just have some machine try out every possible number between 0 and 9999. Okay, so my new code, well, we don't need to know my new code because we're just going to have a look at this debug view here. So we can see what kind of QRules commands it's running. Here are the ones where it's encoding the values. Here's the one where it makes the request, and you can see that the result here is some JSON. And we're doing the JSON to XML conversion. And then these are the fields where I'm actually storing that decoded JSON. So there's no error message because it's exceeded. The date created is current date and time, and the status is queued. So Twilio actually responds before the message actually sends, but basically it tells me that it's queued the message for sending, and it sends it, a microsecond after that. So yeah, the last detail that's worth noting here is this verify button and what it does. So it's basically just doing a couple of checks. If the code is blank, it's showing a message and stopping. If the code is expired, which means the registration timeout is less than now, it says your verification code has expired. Here it's just setting the exceeded max attempts value, whether or not the number of attempts has exceeded the maximum. And then if it has, shows a message and stops. Here it's checking whether the code they've entered is equal to the correct one, and then incrementing the verification attempts if not. And so if all of those succeeded, or if all of those checks came back okay, first we submit them to the contacts list if they're a new person, if they're not an existing contact. And then we just move on to the contact form by changing the state value. And that's it.
Great, thanks, Jimmy. I'm going to switch back quickly. We have a quick feedback form at the end of the survey. At the end of this webinar, we're going to send you a survey, 5 questions as usual. And if you fill that out, we'll send you the kit with the documentation. If you were in the webinar from a couple weeks ago, then you probably fill that same survey out, and we'll send you the package. It'll be slightly updated to show you this SMS text stuff. In addition, we'll send you I'm going to send you a quick. This is another feedback form. So this feedback form is included in the package, and you can use this feedback form to engage your customers after the contact session, whether it be support or whatever it is. So I'm going to throw this into the chat well as well, so you guys can all see this, and hopefully I can do this. You guys can fill that out. And it just gives you a love Twilio is what Brian said. Thanks for the feedback, Brian. And this just is another form that submits to a library on your site to capture that feedback from the customer. Once again, it's anonymous, so you guys can fill it out even though you're not logged in. Now, this is all using Forms Viewer. Works in 365, works in on-prem, but you will need to have Forms Viewer. So we're going to have a few questions in that survey about Forms Viewer and how we can help you get that installed. If you're using InfoPath just as is, the filler will work. I think the filler will work just fine. And if you're using on-prem SharePoint with QRules injected, that should work as well. So you don't absolutely need Forms Viewer if you've got those two scenarios. So Twilio is great. It allows you to communicate with people on their cell phones. And Jimmy walked you through these steps. We have them in the presentation as well, so you can actually see, you can kind of follow through these steps and look at the video, and you can get a sense of, the sample does not include our API credentials. You actually have to add those to the managed templates page in Forms Viewer. If you're not using Forms Viewer, you'd have to do it like in your UDCX file or something. And we've shown this before, how it integrates with the calendar. I think we have a calendar. Jimmy, did we find the calendar where all these appointments are getting stored? Did you have time to do that at the end there? I know I couldn't.
Yeah, there's a list called appointments.
Why didn't I see the right one? So I need to go back to appointments. I thought it was this list. This is not in here. Okay, sorry guys. Just give me 1 second here and I'll see if I can find this. So all of these requests get for the appointments get stored into a list, and that is just appointments, right, Jimmy?
Yeah.
Okay, where is it here?
Here it is.
Oh, that's great. Thanks. Yeah, and so this is just showing us. It looks like we had a few people try this out already, and if we look at last month, okay, so we've got a few people that have tried this out. Thanks for playing the game here. So we already talked about the SharePoint integration. Today, the main thing that we've done differently from the last 2 webinars is to store that user information. We showed that earlier. And I'm just going to skip the rest of this, but I just wanted to do a quick shout out to FormsViewer. We do have a replacement for you for InfoPath. It's not just insurance policy, but it also is a better form display engine, and we're adding designer features. This quarter, we're adding data connection editing. We've added rule editing and SharePoint list mapping and the JSON stuff. This summer, we're going to be finally looking at the layout. So we are on a path to give you a fully functional viewer and designer in the future that does not rely on the deprecated InfoPath technology, and it's virtually free. We just ask you to pay us for support time if you need us, and there's a small license fee with 365 if you're using that, because we have to pay Microsoft. We didn't do the training this week for FormsViewer, so if you're interested in FormsViewer, we do have the training coming up. Unfortunately, we're not able to do it this week. We just didn't have enough people signed up, but we hope to do it in the next week or two or month. So please do sign up for that. We've got, I think, 4 or 5 people who are registered, and we really wanted to have about 7 or 8. So we're going to be doing that soon. Again, we've got a couple of training classes that we've already recorded, actually 3 from last year. We have videos up there. Any questions for us? Thank you, Brian, for that comment earlier. And thanks for the second comment. Why do you love us? We're here for you. But yeah, we're showing new stuff. We've actually shown some interesting JSON integrations with Google API for not translation, but for automatically identifying images. And we did one with the image processing guys. I can't remember the name. Jimmy, maybe you do. But there's a way to automatically do face recognition on the web, and we did that one back in September. So if you're interested in these kinds of demos where we show integration with third parties completely codeless, right, just forms and rules, then take a look at our YouTube list, and we've got a few from before. Question from Eric here: FormsViewer with InfoPath works with data views connected to SharePoint online lists. Yeah, absolutely. And in a sense, we're showing that today. I mean, when you say data views, the form is pulling from lists. Those lists can have data views. So yeah, totally. FormsViewer is a provider-hosted app for SharePoint, and it is following Microsoft's best practice of for the future of SharePoint apps. So it is an app that you install, and it integrates with your SharePoint using the tokens in SharePoint. What we showed today was how to integrate with the forms in FormsViewer without necessarily needing a token, so you can actually use your SMS, external links, and whatnot. But yeah, you can have it all work with SharePoint. Great question. And I've got to run off to another meeting, but I want to thank everyone for your time today and for being here. We'll get this YouTube video posted, and we look forward to getting your feedback. If you have any questions whatsoever, let us know. We'll be sending out that package probably after lunch Pacific time, so you'll get the zip file with all the goodies from this session in a few hours. Thank you so much for being here. Have a great day. Thanks, Jimmy.